Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And that's right guys, you read the title. Finally, I am reviewing the first season, technically, as it's called, of Doctor Who, which, as you all know, because Doctor Who having a new home on Disney Plus and a new era of Doctor Who, pretty much, a big new era for Doctor Who. Not just the fact that, a new incarnation of the Doctor stepping in, but just, with all that has happened and with, what has been brought into Doctor Who and because it's made its way to Disney Plus and so on, you get my point. So that's right. My review of Season 1, which technically being Season 14, I guess I can understand why, with this fresh new start on Doctor Who, and for it being Season 1, I think, I think I recall knowing about this, and maybe some of you do too, but at least, not to mention, because obviously, with Doctor Who making its way to Disney Plus, a new generation of Whovians, of course, and without a doubt, the past eras of Doctor Who with new incarnations, always have been building new generation of Whovians, being introduced to Doctor Who, and the first incarnations of the Doctor that they would be watching, and how they would, of course, discover and know the history of Doctor Who, and the past incarnations of the Doctor himself. And, well, at times in Season 1, they've done that, and rightfully so. So, the first things I have to say about Season 1, well, I know for a fact that, and with, Season 1 and with the rest of Doctor Who, the new era of Doctor Who, and with Doctor Who making its way to Disney Plus, and Russell T Davies coming back, helming Doctor Who, it's definitely gotten some heavy, and I say heavy, mixed feelings. But for me, being a Whovian, I've so far been enjoying Doctor Who, and I thought Season 1 was pretty good, I can understand with some things that I'm sure, a good chunk of Whovians were just like, oh, geez, don't get me wrong, I get it and such, but hey, we are all entitled to our opinions, and for us Whovians, we're entitled to our opinions on Doctor Who and such, But, again, Season 1, as it's called, I thought that pretty much almost the entirety of the season, from episode 1 to 8, I thought they were pretty good, and jeez Louise, a few good chunk of episodes in this season where, just wow, the directions that they take, and, well, this isn't technically the first time that Doctor Who has done some mind-blowing plots and you didn't see coming, okay? Because they're there, of course, and, Russell T Davies and all the others that, being involved in Doctor Who, and also, not to mention, the return of Stephen Moffat, just as a writer, I think that they've so far done a pretty good job, with the different writers writing each episode, and Russell T Davies writing a good chunk of them, and Stephen Moffat writing one episode of Season 1. Not to mention, Joy to the World, like the new Doctor Who Christmas special, Stephen Moffat writing and such. I gotta say, because, in all honesty, the first season of Doctor Who, and with the new incarnation of the Doctor, the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa. Well, come on, this is Ncuti Gatwa we're talking about. Surely, for any of you guys, delightful on screen as the 15th incarnation of the Doctor. He does not disappoint. In my opinion, I don't think he's been disappointing as the Doctor. And especially since, as watching the first season, how involved you start to become and attached to an incarnation of the Doctor. And in this case with the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, yeah, and his new companion, Ruby. Yeah, Ruby was a pretty good companion. And the fact that pretty much almost the entirety of Season 1 focusing a lot on Ruby, like from beginning to end, with the last Christmas special, the Church on Ruby Road, that was the last one, yeah. You know, because that one, that's where it began, and Ruby being an orphan and an adoptive child, you know, being fostered and such. And as Season 1 proceeds, slowly but surely, strange things are happening, like snowflakes, and trying to figure out who in the heck was Ruby's actual biological mother that left her on that church on Ruby Road. Yeah. And as the show proceeds, and up until the end, the very last episode of Season 1, we do find out, of course. Of course we at a certain point, and more than likely, towards the end of Season 1, we were to find out, and sure enough, we did. Yeah. And with the twists and surprises that happen in each episode, some emotional stuff. Oh yeah, because we all know, of course, Doctor Who totally nails at some heavy and emotional stuff. And they're also good at the funny moments. Of course there's plenty of funny moments, even if there's something very serious going on, right? But, yeah. Just overall, the first things I have to say about Season 1, again, I don't think it was a disappointment for me. That's just my opinion. And maybe to some of you who are Whovian fans like me, maybe you would feel the same way as I do, that you thought Season 1 of Doctor Who on Disney Plus was actually pretty good. But yeah. Okay, so getting into Season 1 itself, the total of episodes, again, being 8 episodes. Yeah, and technically the last Christmas special, the Church on Ruby Road, it's technically not the first episode, but it is technically the start of the new season. You know, the first season, again, as it's referred to, because why couldn't they? But again, I get it. Just, all right, drop that. Let's get into Season 1 itself, yeah. So again, the total of episodes being 8. Again, all 8 episodes, in my opinion, were pretty good, because, well, with Episode 1, Space Babies, of course, and as always, for me, read the description / the story. So, description / the story for Episode 1, Space Babies. Ruby learns the Doctor's amazing secrets when he takes her to the far future. There, they find a baby farm run by babies. But can they be saved from the terrifying boogeyman? Yeah, Episode 1 I thought was pretty good, even though it's kind of a low-rated one. I get it. But in my opinion, I thought this was pretty interesting. I get where this was going. The fact that, because they make their way far into the future, and on this spaceship they happen to see all the crew members of the spaceship being babies, and they're very smart and intelligent, and they can speak, and how down in the basement, like in the bowels of the ship, there lies a boogeyman, this creature that the babies are terrified, and there's a computer voice that helps out the babies at times, and, well, apparently because the boogeyman turns out to be made from baby's boogie snot. Well, was it not obvious? Just, gross, but at the same time, the direction this episode takes him with the boogeyman, pretty terrifying creature. Not to mention the Doctor is terrified of the boogeyman, which he should not be, but there's just something different, and there's clearly something to this. And also, the computer voice that we find out turns out to be Jocelyn Sanskari, if I'm saying her full name right, being played by Golda Roshevela, if I'm saying that right. She's basically like the nanny to the babies. And throughout, and, in the episode, because, them helping out the space babies, and up until when they're trying to solve the mysteries and clues, and when it comes to, taking on the boogeyman and trying to blow it out in space, but the Doctor can't find himself doing that because it's the last of his kind, like him. Yeah. Yeah, just the first episode for the first season of Doctor Who, Boogeyman, was pretty interesting. Not to mention that by the first episode, there's a bit of snow that happens on the ship, and a memory happens with, being out on Ruby Road at the church, and, you hear the carol bells being played. Just, yeah, like, it's one of the first hints on what else is to come later on in the season. Yeah, but overall, because Space Babies I thought was pretty interesting, and they did a good job with working with babies in this episode. And yeah, clearly because they digitally had to move the babies' mouths so they can talk. It's obvious, yeah, but pretty good, yeah. And yeah, because some of the other cast members, at times in season 1, getting the appearance of Carla Sunday and the other characters that were in this from, say, Eric, Poppy, Sandra, Marcel. Those are the names of the Space Babies. Yeah, and even the voices of those babies being credited. One of them being Eric. The voice of Eric was Sammy Amber. Yeah. But yeah, and in the end, because the Space Babies are okay, and the nanny looking after them. And not to mention, where did the parents go? Where did the parents go of the Space Babies? Well, apparently they evacuated the ship. But, yeah, just overall, Space Babies was a pretty good one, in my opinion, so, yeah. Okay, then, the next episode, which being episode 2, The Devil's Chord. Yeah. Description / the story. The Doctor and Ruby meet the Beatles, but discover that the all-powerful Maestro is changing history. London becomes a battleground with the future of humanity at stake. So this is where they come face-to-face with Maestro himself. It's the Maestro being played by a trans person, so yeah. Not to mention, the Maestro being one of the Toymaker's legions, because if you recall, in one of the 3 anniversary specials, right as the Toymaker was being defeated and being put in a box, he gave a warning to the Doctor, both incarnations of the Doctor, the 15th and the 14th. The 14th being David Tennant, of course, warning them that his legions will come, and the Maestro being one of them. And basically, to put it at this, the Maestro ruining music, and, well, without music, how can life proceed on, according to this episode? And the Maestro, being played by Genix Monsoon, if I'm saying that right, yeah. Playing Maestro, and, yeah, I'd say Maestro was a pretty interesting villain, even for the Doctor. At first and almost throughout the entire episode, he cannot find a way to defeat Maestro. The situation that they're in and what the Maestro does, screwing up music, in the universe. And yeah, because we do, of course, get the appearance of the Beatles, as we knew about, because seeing the trailers and seeing the Beatles appear, yeah. And those whom betray the Beatles in this Doctor Who episode, Paul McCartney being played by George Capel, John Lennon being played by Chris Manson, George Harrison being played by Philip Davies, yeah. And Ringo Starr being played by James Hoyles, if I'm saying that right? Again, you know me sometimes. I think they did a pretty good job impersonating the Beatles, for this Doctor Who episode. And not to mention, because when the Doctor and Ruby arrive at that time in London in the 60s, yeah, because they happened to park the TARDIS and land it in the same spot / location of one of the Beatles' famous albums where they're crossing the road. Yeah, that one. And then, arriving at the, famous studio in London and where the Beatles were recording, they noticed something off. with the Beatles performing. Even some of the other, like, musicians, like, say, Cilla Black, being played by Josie Sedgwick Davis, yeah. The songs that they're playing, like, say, the Beatles, playing something, recording a song about, like, say, a dog or whatever, and, yeah, it's not quite right. Like, what's going on? And, the Doctor and Ruby, they're puzzled. Also, can't forget to point this out. A good chunk of times in this season, the Doctor and Ruby, most notably the Doctor, changing a lot of wardrobe. I mean, it's not really a problem. But the thing is, like, in the past, like, Doctor Who eras and with the past incarnations, he most of the time kept the same wardrobe on, the coat, the trench coat, and with a tie or just whatever, and he somehow blended in fine with any, like, century or other planet that they traveled. But this time, the Doctor really goes at it with changing some wardrobe, like when they're in the 60s or in the 19th century and so on. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just saying, and let's face it, because this incarnation of the Doctor being different from the others. So that's what's important, right? So the 15th Doctor do his liking, what he likes to do, and the wardrobe that he changes, okay? Every incarnation of the Doctor, always has something that they like to do and so on. Yeah. But again, the biggest thing is that past incarnations of the Doctor, they most of the time kept the same wardrobe on. But of course, it wouldn't be the Doctor if he wasn't wearing, like, say, like, the, proper, like, clothing that he would wear. The traditional, like, Doctor Who clothing, the trench coat and so on, yeah. And I gotta say, because, and I'm pretty sure, I talked about this in my review of the last Doctor Who Christmas special, where the wardrobe that Ncuti Gatwa wears as the 15th Doctor, the leather trench coat and such, I think it looks pretty good on him, and it all depends on what type of clothing works for this incarnation of the Doctor and with the actor himself or her, whomever is playing an incarnation of the Doctor. Okay? So, yeah. But continuing on, because, the Doctor and Ruby trying to find answers to the whole thing of what's happened with music, and even when trying to talk to one of the two, each of them talking to two members of the Beatles, and how, very slowly but surely the Doctor is discovering the presence of Maestro, and, it just gets crazy, and when they try to take on Maestro, but the Maestro is just about winning and defeating the Doctor and Ruby, but all hope is not lost until, at a certain point, because there's always a way, right? There's always a way to defeat a powerful being, like, say, Maestro being a god and such. So, the only way is, well, if, like, music is played really good, like, say, on piano, and the attempts to do that never seem to work. That is until, and, when the climax happens with the Doctor and Ruby, two of the Beatles members happen to be in the studio and, come face-to-face with the piano, they start to play something, and that's what basically defeats Maestro, and just stuffing him in a piano, and that's it for Maestro, yeah. And I don't really want to complain on this, but, to some of you, I get it, but, because the episode is not quite finished yet, because there is a dance number, and at least the Doctor and Ruby aren't singing, but they're only dancing, and even when they make their way back to the TARDIS, them stepping on those steps, where the Beatles cross the road, and yeah. But I don't know, I didn't hate it, it was okay, overall, the ending to episode 2, The Devil's Chord, yeah. And, as I said, again, the Toymaker being one of, Maestro, gotta slow down. Maestro being one of the Toymaker's legions and one of his children. If I did or did not mention that already, but anyways, pretty interesting. And especially, like, Maestro talking a little bit about his relationship with his father and such. He, she, Pardon me. Anyways, but yeah, overall, episode 2, The Devil's Cord, I thought it was pretty good, yeah. Okay, and then episode 3, Boom. That's all it's titled. Okay, description / the story. Caught in the middle of a devastating war on Casterion 3, if I'm pronouncing that right. The Doctor is trapped. When he steps on a landmine, he can save himself and Ruby, plus the entire planet without moving? Yep. This was a pretty interesting one, not to mention, this is the one episode of this season where it was written by good old Stephen Moffat. Yeah, and this being Stephen Moffat's triumphant return just as a writer on Doctor Who, especially since he had been a writer before on Doctor Who, even when Russell T Davies was helming Doctor Who. Like, one of the first pieces of Doctor Who material that Stephen Moffat ever wrote was Blink, from season 3 with the 10th Doctor and such, that first era, the second era of Doctor Who, from 2005 to 6 to when, the 13th incarnation, Yeah, that episode, not to mention Blink being the very first appearance of the Weeping Angels. Yeah, so it's great to see that Stephen Moffat came back after quite a while, even after he left, being a showrunner of Doctor Who. He came back just as a writer, and yeah, good to see. And the episode that he had written, Boom, oh man, because this was pretty interesting. I mean, to both of them, Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies, some episodes that they have written in the past of Doctor Who, and even today, just really good. They never disappoint with some episodes that they write in the world of Doctor Who. So in Boom, well, because, yeah, again, a devastating war is happening. These soldiers, they're at war with these beings in the sky or something, and there's a lot of smoke that's in the sky. You can't really even see the sky or any of the planets. And some of the characters, yeah, not a lot. We have John Francis Vatter, if I'm saying his last name right, I'm pretty sure, being played by Joe Anderson. And there's his daughter, Splice, Alison Vatter, being played by Colleen Springle, if I'm saying her full name right. Again, you know me sometimes. Yeah, because John and another soldier out, keeping an eye out if there's any trouble and such. And also another soldier, Mundy Flynn, being played by Verida Sethu, if I'm getting her last name right, is very close with John and his daughter, and on keeping an eye and looking after his daughter while he's away. Yeah, unfortunately, because John and another fellow soldier of his, because they were blindfolded and they had to be blindfolded until they took them off, and also with the presence of this ambulance and with a woman on a screen, and the ambulance is deadly, very evil, and killing its victims, even though, because it's an ambulance, it's crazy, I don't know how else to describe. But, yeah. And sure enough, because when the Doctor and Ruby show up, well, and to speed things up, because, yeah, a landmine that, the Doctor steps on, and all throughout almost the entirety of this episode, the Doctor standing still, and almost the entirety of this episode taking place in that one location where the Doctor, on one foot, steps on the landmine, and them just trying to figure out and solve the puzzles, and how not to blow up the entire planet, and by not killing himself along with Ruby and anybody else on the planet, yeah. And even when, say, they get some help from, John Francis, but just via hologram of him, and his remains, it's like this tube, and just, it's very disturbing, to say the least. You can even see an eye just... If you've seen this episode, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. And even when, say, Splice steps in, and... golly, does she not immediately know that her father has freaking died? And from that ambulance vehicle? Jeez. And when, even, say, Mundy, shows up, and even, like, yeah, because, you know... the other characters, Carson, him being one of the soldiers, yeah, alongside with John that sadly also met his demise. Carson being played by Maud Mendes, I don't even know how his full name's pronounced. Again, you know me, yeah. And another one, Canterbury James, Offaland, if I'm saying that right, being played by Bahav Joshi, I think I'm saying that right. And, yeah, I believe it's him, yeah, because, he, slowly but surely in this episode, he does have, feelings towards, well, Mundy, yeah, and not close to admitting it, and that he likes her, and, you know, wants to be in a relationship with her, and, yeah, just... overall, this episode being a very interesting one and how intenseful it can be at times. And again, almost the entirety of this episode, the Doctor just standing there on one foot on the landmine, and if anything happens, and with the lights on the landmine, and when it gets to the last one, and if it can go off, just, wow, it's crazy. And even when, yeah, because again, Mundy showing up, and even when James shows up, and, well, because even when the ambulance as well showing up, yeah, a lot of crazy stuff, and when, oh my gosh. But, I mean, how was he supposed to know at first? Because it was all happening fast. James shooting down Ruby because he thought that Ruby was going to kill Mundy, which that's what she was going to do. Having Ruby kill her as a sacrifice or something because of the ambulance. And, yeah, just a lot of emotional stuff that happens. And even when the Doctor promised Ruby's foster mother that he would protect her and, you know, it not let anything bad happen to her, which technically, yeah, something bad did happen to her. And when, you know, James realizes what is going on, and when, yeah, both he and Mundy trying to solve this and help out, but sadly, yeah, James met his demise, and right when he was finally expressing his feelings towards Mundy Flynn, Miss Flynn, I should say, just, yeah, I'll call her by that, Miss Flynn, and we see a via hologram image of him, and yeah, fully expressing his feelings towards her, and how emotional she is, and how emotional that part is entirely. And in the end, well, and when they're trying to, you know, get into proper contact with John Francis's hologram, and for John Francis to hack into the ambulance to defeat the ambulance, and with a bunch of other swarm of ambulances approach, yeah, in the end, John Francis's hologram saves the day. You know, kiss, kiss. That whole thing that he said to his daughter, yeah, that was the answer, yeah. And something about that lady on the ambulance, on the screen, and being played by Susan Twist, yeah, well, how she does frequently appear in almost throughout the entirety of this season, yeah. And yeah, all ends well, and Splice will be looked after by Flynn, and, yeah, and the remains of poor James and poor Francis, yeah, being well kept by, you know, each Splice and Flynn, yeah. But then once again, because snow hitting the planet, and not to mention, there was never really any victims in whom they were going out against, you know, with this war. Never was. There never was. Yeah. And, yeah, just, again, all ends well, as any Doctor Who episode. Sometimes, but, yeah. But overall, I thought Boom was an excellent episode. I really thought it was. And again, Stephen Moffat being the writer of this, yeah. Okay, and now we come to this one, which, yeah, this is top rated. I'm looking at this on its IMDb page, as I always do. Well, yeah, because I've got also Googling this and such, yeah. Episode 4, this one being written by Russell T. Davies. 73 yards in this one. And of course, yeah, read the description / the story. Landing on the Welsh coast, the Doctor and Ruby embark on the strangest journey of their lives. In a rain-lashed pub, the locals sit in fear of ancient legends coming to life. Yeah. Wow, because I really didn't know what to expect with this episode, and I'm sure the same goes for you guys. For the first time ever watching this, I mean, you know, because sometimes Doctor Who doing some sneak peeks of what to so far expect in the next episode, you know? And after Boom, well, a sneak preview of the next episode, 73 Yards, because apparently the Doctor mysteriously goes missing. And yeah, he does, because, and also, no intro is played for this episode. No, we just cut straight to the story. And this isn't the first time that Doctor Who has done this, where, you know, no intro plays, okay? And I'm sure some of you might know that too. Yeah, again, we just cut straight to the episode. Yeah, it was crazy, because them arriving at Wales, and, well, because at one point, stumbling upon, and the Doctor actually steps on this, like, something that was made on the grass. It has to do something with fairy tales or something, you know? And by accidentally stepping on it, well, at one point Ruby happens to see a mysterious, like, old lady figure way off in the distance, and by looking at this mysterious figure, well, at one point, she happens to see that the Doctor completely disappears. Like, where the heck did he go? Did he go back in the TARDIS? Where did he go? Yeah, but... And basically, like, this entire episode just centering on Ruby. That's it. And I do like that, because sometimes a little change of pace where, you know, it would center on one specific character if it's not the Doctor, you know. I think this is one of those first few times that it's done something like this, where we don't have the Doctor at all. Pretty much, yeah. Or even say if, like, the Doctor is in a... you know, hostage situation or something like that. You know, just, you know, I'm sure you guys are aware of this too. But yeah. Ruby just, a long journey that she takes from going to a pub or going back to her hometown, and the help that she tries to get, and when pointing out at this mysterious figure way off in the distance, like trying to talk with those that are in the pub. Some of them, yeah, because, like, there was, say, like, to name off the characters, there was, like, say, Craig DeLoach, there was, Amal Rajan being played by himself, and, yeah, and there was a security officer, Groundsman, played by Jason May, Marty Bridges, being played by Sophie Ablett, yeah. A few people that, Ruby would come face-to-face with a little later on, yeah. And yeah, just anybody that does try to approach this mysterious figure, and when trying to talk, well, they just, like, end up running away in fear, and some of them Ruby would never see again. Like when her mother, did walk up to the mysterious figure, but, you know, she ran away in fear, and, well, that was the last time that Ruby would see her foster mother. Yeah, Carla Sunday. And even when she at one point gets help from the unit, and we see Kate Lepridge Stewart, you know, having all forces, like, you know, have their guns pointed at the mysterious figure, but once again, they run away, and so does Kate Stewart by looking at her in the eye when they were trying not to. Ugh, jeez. And it really gets to you, right? Because you just really wonder, who is this mysterious figure? And what is Ruby gonna do? Everybody turning their backs on her. Yeah, it's crazy. And even when there could be a solution to trying to, you know, wonder what this mysterious figure, this woman, is, like, what Ruby thinks, you know, this woman is trying to tell her. And basically, you know, it could possibly be, say, Mad Jack. Yeah, Mad Jack could be the solution. Yeah, and the name of Mad Jack being Roger William, I think, yeah, that sounds about right, being played by Enrine Bernard, if I'm getting that right, yeah. And he is basically a villain, technically. Also, yeah, a villain of an asshole, I should say. Yeah, best way to describe him, in that kind of type of villain, you know. Yeah, and he's basically because he's one of the antagonists, technically, of Season 1, even though he never really interacts with, like, say, Ruby or the Doctor in that way, you know? And he is the Welsh Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 2046. The time and setting and, like, you know, and with what happens with Ruby and when she's still trying to figure out this mysterious woman figure, and if possibly, Mad Jack is the answer to this, and to defeat Mad Jack. And the other people that she talks with and how, you know, she applies to, you know, work alongside with those linked with Mad Jack, like, you know, taking their coats or coffee and such, just to get close to Mad Jack. And especially when, like, she gets help from, as I mentioned, Marty Bridges, you know, talking with Mad Jack to get close to him, and also when at one point at a, like, you know, sports field, and her just stepping out in the field, and she's not supposed to, using her phone to get to a specific spot, and for the mysterious woman to be right beside Mad Jack. And apparently it works. Maybe, yeah, that helped. And Mad Jack running away, and he steps down being Prime Minister, and all that he can say and as to why he stepped down, and the same thing happens to others that get towards the mysterious woman figure. Ask her. That's all. Just, yeah. But it's not quite that, at least, you know. The mysterious woman figure is still there, and to speed things up, because 40 years later pass after that, and by this point, Ruby is now an old lady. Old Ruby being played by Amanda Walker. And, you know, with how old she's gotten, and at that point she's in a hospital bed, and one nurse that attends to old Ruby, and, well, her time is now coming, and, you know, coming face to face with this mysterious woman figure, and when it finally happens, and it's, you know, it's almost pitch black, yeah, and reaching out to the mysterious woman figure, well, apparently time goes back, you know, we fast forward back in time, right at the exact same spot where this episode first takes place, and where the Doctor and Ruby first arrive. Apparently, turns out, that mysterious woman figure was Ruby. Yeah, seeing her young self, and, well, this time, you know, warning, you know, Ruby for the Doctor not to step ground, and because, you know, the whole thing that's on the ground, and a mentioning of fairy tales, and even a mention of Mad Jack, because, yeah, Mad Jack, the word/name Mad Jack being mentioned at the pub, yeah, this, Well, somehow, time has technically been restored, the direction it was not supposed to take, and with the disappearance of the Doctor, and what would happen next for poor Ruby, yeah, that doesn't happen now. It's been restored. Yeah, just, I tell ya, this episode was crazy. And well done, Russell T. Davies, well done. You made you once again, you know, brought us a well-written, mind-blowing WTF Doctor Who episode with some crazy stuff that happens, and what happens at the end. I mean, of course, all ends well, but still, jeez, yeah. But definitely, probably one of the best episodes for this season. And I think, yeah, I think for a lot of Whovians, they would agree, you know, how great this episode was. Anyways, okay, so there's only 4 more episodes left for me to talk about, and yeah, so episode 5, Dot and Bubble. I think probably this would be one of my favorites of this season. Not just this one, but, you know, a lot of other great episodes. Like, well, I mean, because with 73 yards, I don't know. It's a good one, but I don't know, because again, as I said, and what I've talked about, how crazy that episode was, yeah, But yeah, Dot and Bubble, yeah, it's one of my favorites. And the next one after that, that was another pretty good one too, the direction that takes. And with the monsters that they come face to face with. Oh yeah. But until I get there. But yeah, for now, the next one, episode 5, Dot and Bubble. Okay, so description / the story. The world of Fine Time seems happy and harmonious, if I'm pronouncing that right. But an awful terror is preying on the citizens. Can the Doctor and Ruby make them see the truth before it's too late? Yeah. Now in this episode, and this planet that we are on and we see, and the Doctor and Ruby make their way to, it's very interesting because how civilization works and the people on this planet. Presumably they are aliens, right? But yeah, they basically, every single day, from morning until bedtime, they have this, like, bubble around them. It's basically holographic social media and such, and it also helps them go in directions. Without it, they don't know how to walk. They only know how to walk with the bubble around them and a voice that tells them forward, left, right, back. Yeah, that's how this civilization on this planet works. One of the main characters, aside from the Doctor and Ruby, one of the main characters and one of the main focused civilians on this planet, Lindy Pepper Bean. That's an interesting name, but I'm not making fun of it, of course. Lindy being played by Callie Cook. Yeah. Her waking up and doing her normal routine and when she goes to work. And apparently, these people on this planet, they work for 2 hours and they just do whatever the heck they want to do next. Yeah. Hey, that's nice. Only 2 hours of work on that planet. But yeah. And some of Lindy's online friends, and that's only how she interacts with her friends, is just on the bubble and such. The cast of characters, and with, them being some of Lindy's friends. We have Cooper Mercy being played by Elodie Lowen, if I'm saying her full name right. Harry Tedency being played by Aldous Squire. I'm not gonna even bother trying to pronounce his middle name again. You know me. Hoochie Pie being played by Niam Lynch, I think, yeah. Valerie Nook being played by Millie Kent. Blake Very Blue being played by Billy Brayshaw, yeah. Gothic Paul being played by Pete McHale. Now, yeah, Gothic Paul definitely knows that something is off with what's going on and how apparently a few times early on in this episode where a couple of Lindy's online friends are offline, and it's something's really off, and something like this never really happens. And when the Doctor and Ruby step in and trying to interact and convince Lindy to know what's going on, and for her to listen to them when slowly but surely she does, and when, even they convince her to, like, for a few seconds, like, say 3 or 2 seconds to turn off her bubble, to turn around and to see what's specifically going on. I mean, at times, she's refusing, and she just, but, as the episode proceeds, she has no other choice. These creepy-looking creatures, almost like bug, slug-like, whatever, because them, like, slowly munching on their victims. And even when nobody else on their bubbles is noticing or paying attention to this, even when later on, Lindy is trying to warn the others, but they're not paying attention, because how the society works and with the bubbles they have. And even when, she has to get out of office that early, and, with the help of the Doctor and Ruby, and even at times when she tried to shut off each of them, tried to block them, but no. And even she's puzzled, like, they don't live on this planet. No, and even when, like, say, the Doctor, because he's using a sonic screwdriver, and just so on, yeah. And even, like, because, well, you know, as she proceeds through the town and seeing other, you know, people of hers getting killed and munched on. And when at a certain point, to speed things up, because, yeah, she does get help from one of them that had already turned off his bubble. And, yeah, because that was a character by the name of Ricky September, being played by Tom Rice Harris, which, by the way, because Lindy has a crush on, yeah, being this, like, cool, you know, handsome-looking, like, I guess, like, pop boy or whatever, and the fact that, yeah, he had his bubble turned off, and, well, meeting up with Lindy, and then meeting face-to-face for the first time, and, well, because they stick together, and trying to escape from the monsters. However, they also have to escape from these floating orbs that are chasing after them, and we also find out that each victim being killed are those that, with their names, their first names, starting with letters in the alphabet in the correct order, from A to Z. You see what I mean? And if you've seen this episode, yeah, that's very clever, yeah. And, well, Lindy, her name starting with the letter L, well, she hasn't gotten attacked or killed yet, but when at a certain point she does, yeah. And even when, you know, trying to turn off her bubble and such, and yeah, because with the whole thing of the floating orbs and them trying to kill her literally, and oh my gosh. And because that she had a thing for Ricky, she basically uses Ricky as bait and, like, as a unexpected sacrifice, just allowing him to be killed by them so she can escape. God, what is with Lindy? And just after all this time, and to speed things up, because, yeah, in the end, when she did finally come face-to-face with the Doctor and Ruby in a little hideout from below in, like, the boughs or something, you know, and the survivors, and that have their bubbles off, yeah, they're okay. And even when, like, well, still, her being selfish, and even when the others, like, they don't need the Doctor or Ruby's help anymore, even when the Doctor, he highly suggests and recommend that they shall come with him in the TARDIS to be on an uncharted, you know, cleaned air planet with nothing else on it. Like, if they, like, the Doctor says if, you know, if there happens to be creatures or anything like that on a planet, they can do whatever they want with them, dispose them or something. He just wants to make sure that they are safe and sound on another planet. But they don't want that. They don't care. They just, and the Doctor just really, he starts to get upset by this, and just, yeah, in the end, all those that had survived, and them getting on a boat, yeah, so. And again, to quickly mention again, because Gothic Paul, again, he was the one that was one of the very first ones to be concerned and, you know, trying to warn the others and Lindy that, you know, some of them were missing, and until he met his demise, sadly. Yeah. But, yeah, overall, this episode was pretty good. Yeah, Dot and Bubble. I liked this one. And again, probably, yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes from the first season. Yeah, as it's referred to. Again, why couldn't they just stick with just calling it, say, like, season 14 or something? Come on. But again, I get it. But, and you should too. Yeah, all right, anyways, so 3 down to go. Now, the next one, yeah, this one, I think it's another one of my favorite episodes, and the direction that this one takes. Episode 6. Rogue. Description / the story. The Doctor and Ruby land in 1813, in the 19th century, of course, where guests at a duchess's party are being murdered, and a mysterious bounty hunter called Rogue is about to change the Doctor's life forever. Yeah, this one I think was a pretty good one. The direction that this episode takes, and, well, because, you know, Doctor Who, of course, being no stranger. I mean, and, you know, because this is time travel, and is a good chunk of times where the Doctor has time traveled in the 19th century. A whole bunch of times. So, of course, it wouldn't be the same for him not to go back in the 19th century, but anyways, the Victorian era and stuff like that. You know, even when, say, you know, Madame Vastra Strax and Madame Vastra's wife, you know, them living in the 19th century, the Victorian era, you know, yeah, so, and some, pretty much like a good chunk of episodes where the Doctor and, which any incarnation of the Doctor and any companions that he's with, being in, like, say, the Victorian 19th century era, are some pretty good ones. Even, say, some of the Christmassy ones. Yeah. Like the Snowmen one. Yeah, and where Clara really first encounters and you know, for throughout the entire episode until she sadly dies, becomes a temporary companion of the Doctor. But that is until she would return and the Doctor would come face to face with her again, you know, in the modern time, you know, after the Snowmen. But yeah. Anyways, so, the Doctor and Ruby attending this party, and little do they know, and that goes for the 19th century people attending at the Duchess's party, that trouble is lurking. These shapeshifters, and they do have a name, but yeah, the best way to call them are shapeshifters, okay? Yeah, like, the way that these shapeshifters look, and how they are, Doctor Who's very own shapeshifters. Very interesting. And you know, when it comes to shapeshifters, especially in the world of science fiction, they should always be different in how they do shapeshifting and such. And I think in this case, for the shapeshifters in this episode of Doctor Who, different and pretty good. Yeah, the direction that these shapeshifters are approached and taken. You know, so yeah. So some of the cast of characters in this, well, because there being Lord Barton, being played by Paul Foreman, Lord Galpin, being played by Maxim Ias, if I'm saying that right, the Duchess of Pemberton, yeah, being played by Indira Varma. I think I've probably seen her before in a couple of other stuff. There's also Emily Beckett, who later on Ruby befriends with Emily. But little does she know, as well as us viewers watching this episode, on who Emily Beckett really is, if you couldn't tell already. And some of the other characters, well, a housekeeper being played by Deborah Baker, a butler being played by Ashley Campbell, Miss Talbot, I think I'm saying that right, being played by Nancy Prabin Platt, Mr. Price being played by David Charles, yeah, and, Richard E. Grant was apparently uncredited in this. I didn't quite realize, yeah, because him as the Doctor. Okay, so, yeah, and 3 others that are uncredited in this. I have to go back and look, because I don't know how and why I can't remember Richard E. Grant's appearance in this, but anyways, so, well, I mean, we know, of course, that Richard E. Grant has been in Doctor Who before, right? So, yeah. Also, speaking of which, I like how a few times in this season, we get some flashbacks and archival footage of some past Doctor Who materials. Even say a little bit of the 4th Doctor, but I'll get into that, you know, right after this, because the last 2 episodes, yeah, being the 2-parter season finale, oh yeah, it's where things get really intense. But yeah, back on the episode Rogue, yeah, because, well, and another character that the Doctor comes face to face with, like, and notices at the party something odd about one of the guests. The character by the name of Rogue, the titled character, who we would find out is a bounty hunter and somehow traveling in space. He has his own spaceship, and it's cloaked. And, well, Rogue being played by Jonathan Groff. Yeah, and, you know, is a great actor, has done a lot of great stuff, and most notably, and for us Disney fans, we would know him as the voice of Kristoff from the Frozen films. Yeah, that's him. And also, he had been in Hamlet playing King George, and he was in one of the Matrix films. And also, Knock at the Cabin, you know, the M. Night Shyamalan film. But anyways, so yeah, I actually completely forgot that was him for some reason. I don't know how, but it's one of those things. The Doctor, especially, you know, especially after the Doctor was a woman, and when the Doctor once again regenerated, having the same face as the 10th Doctor, David Tennant. By that point, he now finding men attractive as well. Well, as the Doctor has regenerated and with, the incarnations, changes would come to the Doctor, right? So it makes sense, and because he's an alien, he's a Time Lord, and how Time Lords work, and with them regenerating, and how, any future incarnation would make the Doctor a little different and such. Yeah. So the Doctor starting to find Rogue attractive, not to mention, we never learn whom Rogue's name is. And it's just like the Doctor. The Doctor never, we and the Doctor, nobody learned Rogue's actual name. Rogue suspects, and slowly but surely, he thinks that the Doctor is a shapeshifter. Rogue is, again, him being a bounty hunter, he's after the shapeshifters, and he mistakenly thinks that the Doctor is a shapeshifter. He has no idea who the Doctor really is. And while that's happening, Ruby's still at the party, and the people that she interacts with, even when, again, it comes up to, say, Emily Beckett, and how slowly but surely, some of the guests, even from, say, the two Lords, and I think, even the Duchess, they are killed by the shapeshifters, and they take on the forms. Like, their victims, how they kill their victims by electrocuting them, like grabbing them by the neck or something, and, well, because, an awful sight of their corpse being left, and again, them taking the forms of their victims, and how, some of them want to take the appearance of so-and-so, even a few of them wanting to take on the appearance of the Doctor. I want the Doctor, says a few of them, just, and the Doctor being taken in to Rogue's ship, being held in his position, like a trap and such on the floor. I know there's a specific name to it, but I'm sure you guys know, but yeah. All the science fiction names, certain names in science fiction, devices, You can't remember those specific names sometimes, right? So bear with me. But yeah. And to speed things up, because the Doctor showing and proving that he's not a shapeshifter. And when he shows holographic images of his past incarnations, including, say, in addition, the War Doctor, John Hurt, and the one Doctor being referred to as the Fugitive Doctor, the Black Woman, even she's in there. That's nice to see. And now Rogue knows the truth on who the Doctor really is, and he's not a shapeshifter, he's another alien being, which being a Time Lord, and how Time Lords can regenerate, and their faces can alter and such, new bodies and new personality, all that jazz. And, well, things are patched up between the Doctor and Rogue, and and just how slowly but surely, just how both of them, each of them are starting to grow feelings for one another. And when it comes to them trying to, track and hunt down the shapeshifters, or even say at one point, because, when they do get chased, but they hide from them, and even when, Ruby's once again stepping in and, meeting up with the Doctor once again, both her and Emily, meeting with the Doctor and Rogue, and the Doctor quickly introducing Rogue to Ruby, and introducing Rogue, Ruby, Rogue, Ruby, so-and-so. And how they're all aware of these shapeshifters, but for Emily, because, her, discovering that the Doctor and Ruby, they come from the future, and it's, how can she immediately get used to that and such? Well, even when Ruby tries to talk with Emily a little later on, we do discover Emily is a shapeshifter as well. Jeez. And when it seemed like a little bit of a friendship could have grown between each of them, And, Emily going after Ruby, and we think at first that maybe Emily did go after Ruby and possibly might have killed her and taken the form of her. And, it's also mentioned that, Ruby is to marry someone. And, not to mention the lady that we see at times, as I mentioned, we see a portrait of her, of a past Duchess and such that's pointed out on the wall, And when it comes to the wedding, and I should have known that this was coming, that the shapeshifters would reveal their forms to the party guests. And of course that happens, and panic erupting, and well, they're forced to be the guests of this wedding, and yeah, the wedding taking place. And also, the shapeshifters at times, like, we can hear the sound of them, like, snapping their necks and such. And when it comes to Ruby being forced to marry, even she does that too. And is it possible it could be the shapeshifter that was once Emily now taking the form of Ruby? Well, we don't know quite yet. And now it's just the Doctor and Rogue trying to save the day. And even the Doctor at first thinks that Ruby did get killed. And when the traps were already set up, and when the Doctor was, stalling some time interacting with the shapeshifters and such, and when ultimately the traps are set off, and yeah, they're held in their positions, and by pressing another button it would send them down somewhere, just, black void or whatever. And we find out, and Ruby is assuring the Doctor that it's really her. And the Doctor, well, he's not going to let Ruby get killed or anything. And again, after he made a promise to her foster mother. And when Rogue steps in, well, Rogue knows that, he's got to do the right thing. And not to mention, a little early on, when trying to take on the shapeshifters, the Doctor and Rogue were, basically pretending like, they were dancing and trying to start an argument. And when Rogue proposed to the Doctor, when Rogue is about to sacrifice himself to save Ruby and, still defeat and kill the shapeshifters, well, should have seen it coming, because for the first time ever, seeing the Doctor, kiss a guy, and it's very emotional. It is very emotional. And the last time that, presumably, that they would see one another. And even, Rogue, he did mention to the Doctor that, you'll find me, because what he says. And thus, Rogue saving Ruby and sacrificing himself and taking down and defeating the shapeshifters once and for all. And that's it. Yeah. A very sad ending. And, even when they activated his ship, using the sonic screwdriver, descended back to orbit and wherever it came from, and where he first came from, Rogue, that is. And speaking of his name, Rogue, again, the Doctor mentioning that he never learned his name. And just like how nobody, even us, never learning the Doctor's actual name. Yeah. And for the Doctor, well, he quickly snaps out of it and just proceeds on. He's not going to let that bother him. But even at times, he technically would. I mean, that is to any past companions, like say, most notably, Rose Tyler, his granddaughter Susan, or say, the Pawns. Oh yeah, them being biggies. And Clara being another one too. But yeah, overall, episode 6, Rogue, was a pretty good one. Yeah. And now we come to the last 2 episodes. It's a 2-parter finale. Episode 7, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, and episode 8, Empire of Death. Description / the story for episode 7. The Doctor and Unit investigate Ruby's past, but as the time window reveals horrifying secrets from Christmas Eve, the mysterious Tried technology, if I'm saying that right, unleash the greatest evil of all. And description / the story for episode 8. The Doctor has lost his ageless enemy, Regent Supreme, and a shadow is falling over creation. Nothing can stop the devastation, except perhaps one woman. Okay, so what goes on and what happens in the 2 last episodes of this season, being a 2-part finale? Technically they are. It is a 2-parter. Even though despite the fact, because in the titles of them, it's not like part 1, part 2, that whole thing, but still. Because well, it's nice to see, because, well, the Doctor coming back to the main unit headquarters, the tall building and such. And, well, because, once again, seeing some faces that we saw previously in one of the 3 anniversary specials, Giggle, where we saw the return of Kate Stewart, even though technically we saw her early on in this season. But, however, technically, this is the first time that Ruby meets with Kate Stewart and all of those that are a part of UNIT, okay? Despite the fact what happened and you-know-what, so, yeah. So again, Kate Leopard Stewart, once again being played by Gemma Redgrave, once again coming back. Rose Noble, once again returning, now a part of UNIT, and because, well, not just her, but Donna, her mother, also having a job at UNIT, because as we all recall what happened in the Giggle, it was pretty funny, asking how much allowance and payment. So funny. And also, Colonel Christopher, what's his last name? Once again being played by Alexander Devrient, yeah. And as well as the Vlinks. Yeah, the Vlinks, once again coming back, and Nick Bricks voicing the Vlinks as well. And what's her face in the wheelchair? Because she was completely absent in the last 2 episodes. I don't know why, but, well, surely, because, you know, we'll see her again later on, but I don't know, maybe because this felt that maybe it wasn't necessary for her character to be present. I don't know. And I guess we're left to assume that probably more than likely, you know, she was, like, I guess on an away mission or something. More than likely, yeah. At a different location of UNIT, but anyways. And new faces that we see that are part of UNIT. A young boy by the name of Morris Gibbons, being played by Lenny Rush, and Harriet R. Binger, if I'm saying her last name right, being played by Genesis Lenny, if I'm saying that right. Yeah. And also, let's not forget to mention the returning appearance of Melanie Bush, who was a past companion of the Doctor, with the 6th Doctor, most notably, Colin Baker. Yeah, so, and nice to see that, you know, she made a triumphant return and now working at UNIT, and, well, Melanie once again being played by Bonnie Lenford. Melanie, one of those redhead companions of the Doctor's. Best way to describe, because, you know, from her and Amy Pond being the most well-known 2 redhead companions, very lovely girls, lovely gals, companions of the Doctor. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so good to see her again. And once again, at certain times in the last 2 episodes, getting the appearances of Ruby's foster family, her foster mother, Carla, as well as Carla's mother and slash the foster grandmother of Ruby, Cherry, as well as Mrs. Flood, who at times appears in this season, and just something very interesting about Mrs. Flood and how at times, you know, she kind of breaks the 4th wall, and the way she interacts with some of the other characters, yeah. And again, Mrs. Flood being played by Annetta Dobson, the wife of Brian May, one of the Queen band members. You know, yeah. But you know, overall, because Mrs. Flood is a pretty good character, so even when at a certain point in these 2 episodes, you know, because she helps, take care and watch over Cherry Sunday, while at one point Carla, is with her daughter a couple of times and so on, yeah. But yeah, so something crazy is about to happen in the second to last episode and up to the last one, where apparently, because, this woman that we had been seeing at times, from the ambulance to a portrait of her in 1813 and so on. Well, yeah. And again, this woman being played by Susan Twist and her character sharing the first name as she does, Susan. This character being Susan Triad, if I'm saying that right, and this company that she runs which, as I read in the description / the story of episode 7, Triad technology. And the Doctor figures it out, and by switching the letters around, it's TARDIS technology. And it's presumed, they think at first, maybe it's the same Susan that the Doctor knows. Susan, his granddaughter. Could it be that same Susan? Like, surely we know because, like, Susan being a Time Lord as well, and if she possibly regenerated or something, you know, it could be a possibility. And the Doctor determined to know, not to mention the unit, trying to figure this all out too with the technology they have, even when, say, it comes to when trying to help out and find the location, whereabouts, and DNA samples on Ruby's actual mother. Because again, at times in this season, when snow would flake and we would hear carols, the bells, and just, yeah, and how, you know, at the risks of time being changed because of that, and with the memories, yeah. And to speed things up, because, yeah, what the Doctor and the unit do trying to, you know, solve this mystery, and with Susan, and if it is the same Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter, and even when Melody is undercover, working at the Triad technology, which the name really being TARDIS technology, not Triad, TARDIS. And how is that possible with the word TARDIS? Like, yeah. Yeah, because even when, like, say, one thing that was off the limits of UNIT since the 1970s, the time window, but for the first time, they break that rule and such, you know, and them using the time window, and basically, like, having to do with memories, and looking at Ruby's memories of when she was left at that church doorstep on Ruby Road, and if they can try to see and look the face of Ruby's biological mother under that black cloak, which unfortunately they still have no luck. But even when the Doctor, he was present in 2004 when Ruby was left there, as we all know, and in the Christmas special, well, something starts to become quite off with that memory. Even when, say, presumably, Ruby's mother is pointing at something. Like, she's, like, probably clearly pointing at the Doctor. Yeah, that's what they think. And yeah, pointing at the Doctor. But apparently, it wasn't really the Doctor. What was it? And even when, like, one of the other unit members, and didn't name him yet, that being Colonel Winston Shadois, if I'm saying his last name right, being played by Tasha Newall. I think I got that right, yeah. Approaching and looking around and even behind the holographic image of the TARDIS and the memory and such in the time window. Alright, and to speed things up still, because, yeah, again, something happens, and apparently this mysterious, like, you know, interesting, like, weird, scary, like, mist of fog or something approaches, a storm, whatever, and, well, the Colonel Winston, he at one point disappears, and where did he go? And when they're trying to order him to come back and out of the time window, because the room that they're in, and, like, to activate, you know, the memory and such of Ruby's past, and, you know, on Christmas of 2004, yeah, he goes missing. And when it is discovered that his body is there, and the way that his body looks, his corpse, it's completely, like, sand and dusty, and just, like, it's like, you know, been dead for many years. Like, what is going on? And when it turns out, and when it's revealed, and even when, because the Doctor has to, you know, tag along with Melanie, you know, to meet with Mrs. Triad, Susan Triad, and, well, the interactions that the Doctor has with her, and she has with the Doctor, each of them, and yeah, because even the mentioning of Susan having some dreams, some nightmares and such, and when it turns out those dreams were true, because, you know, we've been seeing her almost throughout this season, the different appearances that she's taken, from, like, a cyborg, an ambulance, and a portrait that we see in the 19th century, all of this. And when she's about to make like a public appearance or something, and there's no audience. It's just like audience tracks and such, and her reading the cue cards. And when she's starting to then go off script and talking about the dreams and such, and apparently Susan being of like a victim, well, basically a put upon, being a servant to whom the Doctor is going to come face to face with. And yeah, that he had not seen in a long time. And apparently this enemy goes back to, say, the era of the Fourth Doctor, as I recall, and from what I've seen and done my research on. Yeah, all throughout this time. Now, I'm not sure, probably not like, say, the very first beginnings of Doctor Who with the first incarnation, but I think at a certain point and with the Fourth Doctor, and from there on, someone has been holding on tight to the Doctor's TARDIS for years and decades, all throughout time and space, no matter where he's traveled. And that being another god being, which being named, and I think I'm going to try and see if I can pronounce his name, Sutekh, if I'm saying that right, yeah. Basically, Sutekh is an ancient Egyptian deity associate with chaos. Yeah, I'm reading the description of him. Destruction and storms. Yeah, the name is also used by a musician and a villain in the science fiction television series Doctor Who. In Doctor Who, Sutekh is a recurring villain who first appeared in 1975's Pyramids of Mars with the Fourth Doctor. Yep. Sutekh uses mind control to force the Doctor to transport Scarman to Mars. Yeah, so this villain dates back to the time and era of the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker. And yeah, because in these two episodes, at a certain point, we see some memories from the Doctor footage of, well, when he was the fourth incarnation, Tom Baker. Yeah, so hey, it's nice to see that by this point, starting to bring back some old and opponents, antagonists that the Doctor had not come face-to-face with in quite a while. The Toymaker being one of them, of course, yeah. And the Master, well, the Master kept appearing from time to time, but unlike, say, the Toymaker and the ancient Egyptian god, yeah, because we hadn't seen any one of them for quite a while until now. So, and the form of this ancient Egyptian god, Sutekh, and if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I'm sorry, you know me sometimes. I've heard them say, when watching the last two episodes, they say his name a good chunk of times, but it's just one of those things, and again, bear with me. The form that he takes is like this, dog-like creature with, I think, 4 eyes. Yeah, there's the 4 fingers. But a cool design, Yeah, because one of those, that kind of figure form from the portrait, drawings and such, of ancient times, Egyptian stuff, yeah, one of those, dog-like looking creatures, yeah. And the Doctor he can't believe whom he's coming face to face with. He knows who it is, and how in the next episode, yeah, this is where, pardon my French, shit goes down and crazy stuff happens, pretty much, yeah. Not to mention that one of the unit members, which being, Harriet, is linked with Sutekh, yeah, the Egyptian god, the ancient Egyptian god, is linked with him, and especially this has to do with her last name, and, well, the same goes for Susan, yeah. So all throughout this time, it was really the ancient Egyptian god and, having that woman appearing in so many locations in Season 1, and how it turns out, because he was attached to the TARDIS for a long time, leaving duplicates of that woman. So when the time came, unleashing the Sand of Death, and that's what happens, because in the next / last episode of this season, the Sand of Death is, blown into the atmosphere all around the planet. Every single living being on planet Earth and throughout the entire universe being killed instantly because of the sand. Even those that are a part of the unit, they don't survive that long. And oh my gosh, from Rose to Kate, it's devastating. It's so devastating. Even Ruby's foster mom, as well as her foster grandmother, and Mrs. Flood, and she knew that this was coming. It's so devastating. And the only survivors, the only 3 last surviving people are the Doctor, Mel, and Ruby. And they do manage to escape. Not in the actual TARDIS itself, because, well, by that point, the ancient Egyptian god has control and possession of the TARDIS, and with the help of his, goons under his control. Yeah, they have, skull faces and such. Yeah, and again, not Melanie. Harriet being one of them. So yeah, it's really sad that all of this is going downhill, and when there's nothing left, and they're really the only surviving members. Yeah, the last surviving beings in the universe, Mel, the Doctor, and Ruby. And when they escape, and going back into the time window, well, the TARDIS that's there, they manage to get inside of the TARDIS, and it's basically a memory TARDIS, and with an entirely different interior, filled with memories, basically. Even a very sweet and nice moment where Mel happens to notice, the wardrobe that the 6th incarnation wore, the Doctor that she was with. Oh yeah, that was a nice and sweet moment right there. Not to mention because, that thing that BBC and Doctor Who did, where the incarnations of the Doctor from, say, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, they reunite with their companions. I believe, I think that TARDIS interior technically was used. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I think so, yeah, as far as I recall. But yeah, so they managed to escape in the memory TARDIS, filled with memories, escaping into space, away from Earth's atmosphere, and the view from space and looking at Earth and the universe itself with all the other planets, how it's being filled with sand. The sands of death, as I said, and just, yeah, it's completely just unbelievable to be seeing this. Everybody living on the planet Earth and everybody else living in different planets of the universe, the galaxy, being, wiped away because of the sands of death. The ancient Egyptian god himself, Sutake, yeah, I wish I could really remember how to pronounce his name right, but you know who I'm talking about. Again, I'll just pretty much just be calling him the ancient Egyptian god, yeah. By this point, he's won. He's won and has taken over and wiped pretty much the entirety of the universe, all living beings and such, yeah. And the Doctor, well, blaming himself on this. But even though it's not really his fault, how was he really supposed to know all this time? And throughout his entire life of his past incarnations, was supposed to really know that the ancient Egyptian god was tagging along with him the whole time, and what he was plotting. And thus he finally did, and when the time came in this, yeah. It's very emotional. It really is. And for the Doctor, man, because heart-wrenching when, he just shouts, out in space, and you can just feel his pain. You really can. And, later on, because the aftermath and what happens next for the poor Doctor, Ruby, and Mel, and one of the planets that they travel to, well, one person that the Doctor interacts with, I believe because, that's her, the kind woman that the Doctor interacts with. It's a very nice moment, and to speed things up because, the doctor is asking for like something metal, steel, and it being a spoon. And something about the spoon and the talk that they each have. Yeah, and especially with the spoon. Like, you wouldn't expect, but yeah. But something with the spoon and promising that kind woman. And even when she vanishes because of the sand of death. Oh, yeah. And, well, because sure enough, you know, slowly but surely, the doctor's trying to figure out, and of course, you know, it's not like the doctor's gonna give up and such, but especially, and with Ruby being linked with this, of course, and with her biological mother, well, and looking at some more memories, especially with Ruby, again, the memory of her when she was left out on the church doorstep on Ruby Road, well, to put it this, only one face, one being that the ancient Egyptian god did not see, and that being Ruby's mother. And yeah, he never got to see the face of Ruby's biological mother being under that cloak, and when apparently because she pointed, yeah. And when them trying to figure this out, and possibly maybe they can find DNA samples finally of whom Ruby's biological mother is. And them traveling to the same year, just like in, you know, the one with Mad Jack, 2046, I believe. Yeah, that. Trying to find DNA samples because Mad Jack and where he was working at, because also having, like, DNA samples, and possibly DNA samples of Ruby's biological mother, trying to find that, which... yeah, they do successfully do so. However, little does the Doctor and Ruby know that while they're doing that, and with Mel still tagging along with them, at one point, the ancient Egyptian god takes possession of her and forcing Mel to work alongside with him, being one of his goons and servants, and to, you know, follow along with the Doctor and Ruby and to know who that woman was, and when they get the DNA sample, and with that memory footage. And, yeah... once they proceed with what they're doing and such, yeah. And to speed things up still, because, yeah, ultimately, they are brought to the ancient Egyptian god, thanks to Mel being under possession by the ancient Egyptian god, and being forced to have them show who the woman is. And, you know, Ruby has to do so, even when, you know, the Doctor is slowly being tortured and any risk of him being killed. And Ruby doing so, and especially to save her friend, the Doctor. But she's not really gonna let the ancient Egyptian god have it, just smashing it. And the Doctor managed to get this out of the memory TARDIS, like a piece of rope and a whistle, and by, you know, swinging and attaching the rope to the ancient Egyptian god by his, like, collar or something, and pulling the rope using special black gloves, each of them, Ruby and the Doctor, and pulling the rope and attaching itself to the TARDIS, and by blowing the whistle, basically getting the TARDIS itself, the main TARDIS, to activate itself, because, you know, technically the TARDIS in a way is alive, and the TARDIS basically no longer in the possession of the ancient Egyptian god and his goons, taking control of itself, activating, and it's back to its ordinary self, and sure enough, well, pulling the ancient Egyptian god into the vortex. And that's what happens. The ancient Egyptian god is, you know, outside of the vortex while the TARDIS is flying, and basically having the ancient Egyptian god to rip through the vortex, bringing everything back to life, and also death upon death, however the Doctor says it. And it's working, and, you know, because with what the ancient Egyptian god is doing by, you know, causing a rip and such through the vortex, everything is coming back to life. Everyone's back, and they're all safe and sound. You know, those that got killed by the sands of death, they're back. Everybody's back. From those that are part of the unit, Ruby's foster family, Mrs. Flood, yeah, it's all good now. But not quite finished yet with the ancient Egyptian god. The Doctor, well, still feeling some pain and such in him, and where he's about to become a monster. I mean, I don't know, but he's technically doing the right thing, right? Defeating the ancient Egyptian god once and for all. Yeah, the speech that he gives to him, and when in the end, like, closing the TARDIS, and I think, yeah, he got, the rope got unattached, and sure enough, the ancient Egyptian god is turned to ash and such, once and for all, burned to a crisp. He's done for, presumably, because, hey, with certain Doctor Who villains, they can't always be defeated, right? They can always come back in a specific way, and if it's done in the right way. And yeah, even though all has ended well, the Doctor's still feeling guilty, and when Ruby goes to comfort him and such, yeah. And to speed things up still, because everything is safe and sound and, well, back at unit headquarters, this time for sure, they finally, at long last, checked the DNA samples, and they finally had found Ruby's actual biological mother. Her name is Louise Miller, being played by Faye McKeever, if I'm saying that right. Yeah. Also, to mention this as well, because as I mentioned, archival footage and memories of the fourth incarnation of the Doctor, Tom Baker. Also, archival footage of, say, Carol Ann Ford, Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter, and archival footage of Sarah Jane Smith, the late Elizabeth Sladen. Yeah, because from one of those episodes of the Fourth Doctor with the ancient Egyptian god and such. Yeah, that both he and Sarah came face to face with. Yeah. So again, Ruby's mother has finally been discovered and has been having a good life, and also the mention of Ruby's biological father. And the thing is that Ruby's biological parents had her at a very young age when they were in their late teens. Yeah. And the reason why her biological mother gave up on her, well, because things were quite ugly with Ruby's biological mother's stepfather, keeping the pregnancy secret and just wanting to save herself and her now born daughter safe and such from all this abusive stuff and such, and with the stepfather. Understandable, yeah. And when Ruby does finally come face to face with her biological mother, and basically, in a way, introducing herself to her biological mother, and the mentioning of leaving her on the doorstep of the church on Ruby Road in 2004 on Christmas. It's all coming to her, and it's quite emotional for each of them, and being reunited, and how sorry Louise feels. But Ruby assures her mother that it's okay, and, well, they are finally reunited. And even when, because we see them together with Ruby's foster family. Even Ruby talked and mentioned her biological mother about the Doctor, gave her all the information, even when she tells the Doctor as well. So she's now aware, Ruby's biological mother, she's aware about the Doctor. So yeah, and everything that Ruby's had gone through being on adventures with the Doctor. So yeah, a very happy family reunion right there. But for Ruby, she still wants to go on an adventures with the Doctor, but she just got back with her biological mother. And maybe possibly soon, she will also soon be reunited with her biological father, because I believe, she got a text from the units that they found the whereabouts of Ruby's biological father. And that's good to see. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, definitely Ruby needs to this time spend a lot of time with her biological parents now that she's gotten back with her actual mother, and soon to reunite with her actual father. And it is quite emotional because she's going to miss the Doctor, but the Doctor assures her that she will see him again. Yeah. But unlike, say, past companions and people that the Doctor never returned to, most notably his granddaughter. Yeah. But he's not going to let that happen with Ruby, or at least anybody else, Yeah, it is very emotional. Also, not to mention, when all the planets were restored and all the civilians living on those planets, even the kind woman, and being with her child. Yeah. And again, with the whole spoon thing. Yeah. So, yeah. Again, Ruby and the Doctor saying their goodbyes. And, yeah, and I love that, because Ruby, along with her foster family and her biological mother, they watch as the Doctor disembarks on his TARDIS. It fades away. Yeah. And even the Doctor, getting a little bit emotional, but trying to keep it together, because, well, again, he would know, of course, that he's going to see Ruby again later on. So, yeah. And, well, the last thing we see is, well, Ruby still having a good time with her foster family and her biological mother. And as the camera pans out from the window and up on top of the apartment building, and we see Mrs. Flood one last time doing some narration and basically establishing us viewers that, well, the story of Ruby Road has come to an end. Where it began in Season 1 and where it ended off, you know, this season altogether. Yeah, and it's pretty funny with her, again, breaking the fourth wall, and the mentioning of the Doctor's story, how it ends disastrously, you know, how she says it, but, nah, because the Doctor will be fine, just still, as always, getting into some uncharted situations and some what-the-crap moments, but in the end, it all turns out fine. Yeah. And yeah, what a heck of a way to end off the last episode of Doctor Who until, well, after this, the next Doctor Who Christmas special, as we all know. Yeah, wow. Yeah. The first season of Doctor Who, as it's referred, again, that whole thing of it being called Season 1, like I said, but I don't want to make a huge complaint about it. I get it. Again, I totally get it, and you guys should too, with why it's being referred to as Season 1, okay? A fresh new take on Doctor Who, and so on, yeah. But anyways, Season 1 of Doctor Who, I thought was pretty good. All the episodes, and those, especially those that I pointed out, are some of my favorites, yeah. From beginning to end, Season 1 was a pretty good season. For it being the first season, a fresh new start on Doctor Who with the new incarnation of the Doctor himself, Ncuti Gatwa, with new faces that we see, new companion, Ruby, some new monsters, new enemies that they come face-to-face with, some old familiar faces that we hadn't seen in a while, most notably the ancient Egyptian god, the surprises, the twists, the unexpected moments, and how, as always, in the end of every single episode of Doctor Who, sometimes, you know, with the exception of, say, like, leaving it off on a cliffhanger and up until the next episode, overall, happy endings, and, yeah. All the stories that were brought to each and every single episode of Season 1 of Doctor Who, really good. Some of them, I know, because to some of you, not really the best, but, again, some of them turned out really good. Yeah, so even, and as I saw on its IMDb page, some that are top rated. Yeah. The music, of course, in Doctor Who, fantastic, yeah. Good old Murray Gold, you know, doing the music and score for Doctor Who. Russell T Davies, once again, helming Doctor Who, and some episodes that he's written, and everybody else that each wrote an episode of Doctor Who, like most notably Stephen Moffat. Yeah, just overall, fantastic. As the 9th incarnation would say, fantastic. In my opinion, of course, but anyways. Yeah, just again, overall, Season 1 of Doctor Who, really good. And, yeah, why not? Because, you know, I give it, yeah, I mean, because, you know, I can't say it was really the best season of Doctor Who, but still, yeah, I give it 8 out of 10 stars, yes. For Season 1 of Doctor Who, 8 out of 10 stars. That should be fine, right? But, yeah. So what about you guys? What did you think of the first season of Doctor Who itself, this fresh new start of Doctor Who, and with the new incarnation and, you know, Ncuti Gatwa being the 15th incarnation, Ruby Sunday, all the new faces and some that have come back, some old foes and new monsters, stuff that happens in each episode, the surprises and twists, and with its storylines, the heavy emotion, the funny moments, and the action and intenseful stuff, you know, just everything about Season 1 of Doctor Who. Yeah, what did you think of it? And with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video alike as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Season 1 of Doctor Who. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome, or should I say, fantastic. You know, keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. Take care, and until the next Doctor Who Christmas special, which being Joy to the World and Season 2, peace out. And Z.